Black Ops 7 is being completely hated. I couldn't think of a word to do.
Me and my friends would have killed Black Ops 7 with hammers, I can tell you that much.
Butchered. This was the thing that opened the opening night live showcase Call of Duty Black Ops 7, and just, I feel like was immediately met with a lot of like, okay, sure, you guys just did Black Ops 6, but okay. But the main talking point around this, obviously there's all the stuff within Opening Night Live. There was the gameplay showcase and the cinematic stuff, and Milo Ventimiglia heading up the campaign.
Great actor.
Great actor, yes. So I love heroes as well. But the whole thing with Battlefield 6 is very much in the conversation. Like as soon as the reveal trailer for this hit online, like on YouTube, it has an insane amount of downvotes. It's like 250,000 downvotes.
Do you not think it's really funny how this is cyclical? Because this happened with Infinite Warfare when Battlefield 1 was coming out the exact same year as well. It's just a funny coinky dink.
Well, I was thinking like I am old enough to remember like the cycles with Call of Duty. Like they do a series of games in a certain time period and everyone harkens for something different, and then they change and we all welcome it. We go, oh, thank God you listened to us. You took the boots off the ground for a little bit. We did a few games like that, and then we all go, I'm getting sick of this. You've gone way too far with it. It happened with Black Ops 3. Bring it back to boots on the ground, or maybe the rival franchise does it, like you said, with Battlefield 1, and then eventually Call of Duty answers, we got World War II or whatever, and then it just seems like they go back and forward. And the way that it's landing this year is you've got, you know, obviously the return of Battlefield, and Battlefield 6 has gone down a storm. Like the open beta was so popular that people couldn't even get in. They were waiting in the queue for hours, kind of thing, across the weekend. And it just so happens that that is landing and answering those wants for a more realistic shooter, right as Black Ops and Call of Duty is doing another ridiculous, over-the-top dream sequence campaign thing.
It's interesting because for me, it doesn't feel totally at odds with what Call of Duty's identity is. I definitely think with the in general, the hardcore COD player base, if it's still there, is wanting something more akin to Modern Warfare 2019.
Yes.
But the whole psychedelia aspect of Black Ops has always been there. And to be honest, watching the trailer for it, I wasn't totally unenthused by what I saw. I don't think I'm going to get the game because playing Black Ops 6 last year, I was like, I had a great couple weeks with that. And then I kind of realized, no, I think the ship has fully sailed for me in Call of Duty. And overall, you know, even though we'll get the big promotional cycle about, you know, Black Ops 7 and its campaign, which again, I'm glad they're doing something unique with that. The co-op thing sounds interesting, even if they've advertised it in a very cliched, tropey way. But at the same time, I'm like, well, this is still just going to be an outlet for you to plug Warzone. Like, it's still going to be an outlet for you to sell skins about, like, you know, just... I mean, Nicki Minaj has been catching so many strays recently. But, you know, it's still going to be a vector for you to be able to play as Beavis and Butthead in, like, you know, Warzone. It's not going to matter. And I feel that's the issue with Call of Duty now, is that these annualized releases, even though they sell loads and loads, and the campaigns still carry some kind of cultural clout, I guess, and people will play the multiplayer TDM and the individual modes from that. Warzone is the constant, and I do think that we're at a point now where the identity of the franchise has become so cannibalized that the annualized nature of the series, each game feels even more redundant than ever before. Which, again, is interesting because I don't think anyone can bet against Call of Duty making loads and loads of money every single year. But you know, the long-term health of the franchise, it does pose some tricky questions. And I'd be curious to see if people get bored of it or not.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing with the acquisition as well, because like that whole idea, Phil Spencer was the one who got out there and said that maybe they would explore not having an annual release model, which obviously that hasn't happened, and maybe it would take a lot longer to settle into doing something once every 2 years. At the same time, or very recently, you've got EA saying they want to turn Battlefield into an annual release, which would then probably exhaust that IP as well. Like the reason Battlefield 6 is being welcome with open arms is because 2042 was like 3 years ago and it was pretty naff, or it didn't feel like a proper Battlefield game or whatever. And it's just one of those things where it's like, if you're going to keep churning these out in the modern gaming industry, then to some degree corners have to be cut. But you mentioned before, like the identity of the series and the different time periods and stuff. And Modern Warfare 3, like you mentioned 2019's Modern Warfare, like that was one of the last ones that I loved, even though I really enjoyed Black Ops 6. Modern Warfare 3 was the one that was put together from just like different online maps to make the campaign and whatever. And that still sold incredibly well. So it's like the brand does carry, but it's like, how many times can you keep shuffling these parts around and shake the keys and go, hey, over here?
It's weird, isn't it?
One more time.
I don't want to. It's gonna sound very gatekeepy what I have to say here, and maybe even a little bit elitist. But I do kind of feel like Call of Duty and your FIFAs or whatever, even though if you look online, there are very dedicated kind of engaged players who are really scrutinizing all the bad decisions that are being made, all the, things that they disagree with or whatever. I think by and large, these are games intended for the casual market. It's more of a FOMO thing and a kind of like a ritualistic thing than it is something that's like a conscious decision to get. Like I could be underestimating people like massively there. I feel like if you have a PS5 or a Series X, you are invested in the hobby.
But you've got it on Game Pass anyway on the Xbox.
That's the thing, but I do kind of think that it's just a thing people do. It's it's not a thing people invest in. It's a thing people do, and it's a thing that you do once a year, and you play it, and then you forget about it, and that's how the series survives. It's disposable. It's like the single-use vape of the gaming industry. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's a thing that subsists on habit rather than actually like compelling people to want it.
That's a really good point. I mean, I love the Call of Duty launch weekend energy.
That's
vibes,
what I mean. It feels
whatever.
like a habit, right?
Yeah, and it's like, and you said you had a great couple of weeks with it. Like, yeah, I remember that whole first month being like just like, I mean, I do enjoy that period, and it's funny the idea that they would cash so much in on that initial reaction or that initial sort of energy, and then like you said, it's Warzone that carries on. But I think they could do a better job of differentiating like either time periods and release calendars and getting back into that one every 2 years, like different time periods rotate or whatever. Whilst keeping Warzone as the over-the-top thing, because I've seen the image that's doing the rounds of like Seth Rogen in like the foreground, and I think it's Beavis and Butthead that's behind him, and the meme being like, oh, this is the same franchise that used to have like the World War, like the Normandy landings.
I don't think the series can get back to that anymore. I think it's a case of it is too big and it's cannibalized what it used to be, and I think that's something that maybe Call of Duty players who were there for the older days of the series are probably beginning to accept now. I think it's just it's very, very weird, the state of that series, and I think it's one of those things where it's like a game for everyone is a game for no one.
Yeah.
And as long as Call of Duty continues to try and be the everything game,
to be Fortnite,
I am just very, very curious to see if there are actually any negative long-term consequences to this, because I'm not saying that I think Battlefield 6 is going to outsell Black Ops 7, but if it were to, this would be the best year that Battlefield could go ahead and do that.
Well, the thing is, like, yeah, Call of Duty's been dethroned before. Like, Elden Ring sold more than sold more than Call of Duty back in like 2022 or whatever. And it feels like the hype is just with Battlefield. Like, for whatever reason, that thing is hitting all the right notes. Like, there's not been a sort of traditional Battlefield since like 2016. I guess Battlefield 5 was.
Battlefield 5, really underrated game.
Yeah.
That got dragged through the mud after its launch window, and I think its launch window was very, very rough. But I think based on what I'm reading from people on Battlefield 6 who, like me, weren't particularly massively impressed by the beta, people going back to Battlefield 5 and going, wow, this game's great. And I'm like, yeah, we did say that. But sorry, that was a tangent.
No, I think it's worth saying, because I think that for me, like the insane runaway hype for 6 is like, oh my God, we haven't had a grandstandy Battlefield in ages.
Harkening back to, the days of BF3, BF4, Bad Company 2.
And it's, especially Battlefield 4. Like, I feel like was that the skyscraper one?
Yes, that was the Levolution one where you could bring down the dam and the building and the siege of Shanghai and stuff like that.
And it's like Battlefield 1 had like the scale and scope and stuff and the graphical punch as well.
Game.
But like even that is almost a decade old, which is and it horrifying.
Hilariously looks better than BF6. Again, again, everyone is catching strays to me here. I've got my shotgun
firing in all directions.
Completely, I'm rat-a-tatting everywhere.
Batista style.
But yeah.
Still, the way that this thing's coming together and the fact that like I said, the positioning of it as opening Gamescom, as like, I just feel like Call of Duty to most people who follow games online is like, we know what this is. It's a foregone conclusion. What have you guys got for us this year? And then the more that Call of Duty embraces the crazy Titanfall adjacent gameplay style, that just seems to always annoy the traditional or the majority of players.
That's the additional annoying thing about this, right? Because I know that Call of Duty as a franchise has so many different studios going into it. But at the end of the day, Warzone still is a vacuum for money, investment, time, and attention from Activision. And it'll mean that you get less individual, less compelling annual releases as a result. And that's a shame, because I don't know, it's weird, the whole homogenization of identity moving around the Battle Royale genre in general. There was a really good video I saw the other day about someone reacting to Call of Duty streamers play and competitive streamers playing the Battlefield 6 beta and complaining that it wasn't Call of Duty-like enough. And they were talking about how They use that Arrowhead Games quote about how a game for everyone is a game for no one. And again, this is why Helldivers 2 was so successful as a title, because it committed to the bit, committed to the bit, and kind of just going into that whole thing of like, well, you know, Battle Royale has kind of just, it's a more that kind of just sucks in everything, and that runs the risk of, you know, diluting why we come to these series in the first place. But again, you know, it is a case of, is Call of Duty too big to fail? I don't know.
I think for me, ultimately, it is one big like tone thing, because I feel like this year's Battlefield, or this, you know, Battlefield 6 is more COD than ever, like in terms of how fast it plays, like the slides and everything else.
I've got to
like,
hope
the great irony
of the map.
Yeah,
I really do. That's the thing I'm banking on.
hopefully they get there. But it's still, I mean, I think it's a good year to be a first-person shooter fan.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of things to pick from.
I will be playing it. You know, I will be getting Battlefield 6 for as much as I've been dogging on it. Like, I do think that I've just got to hope that there is an awareness of what that franchise identity is, because that's the big thing for me. I've seen too many of my favorite games over the last like 15, 20 years lose their identity to chase the next big trend.
Yeah.
And I'm about done with it. I'm about done with it.
Same.
Yeah.